There we go. Well, welcome. My name is Bruce Lambson. My Dharma name is Hogen. Hoshi gave me in 2005. No, 2003, I think. So I was going to start off tonight. I just want to tell you a little story, kind of odd story, but over the years, I've been to a number of different Zen and Tibetan Buddhist centers and met different teachers and learned from various different teachers or heard them talk or whatever. And of course, Genpo Roshi is my root teacher, but I also consider Mark Kanchi Roshi and Mary Ellen Sayan Sensei a teacher who I've learned so much from over the years that they don't even know. But one time about, it's probably 7-8 years ago, and one of the teachers that, I won't mention the name, but you probably don't know him anyway, called and asked if I would come and talk to him. And I went down there and he said, I was wondering if he was wondering if I would go to work for their center and do kind of the same things administratively that I've done for Roshi over the years. And Roshi was had all his stuff taken care of at the time, and I was just kind of hanging loose. And I said, well, I might be interested, but I'd want to be able to give a talk once in a while. And he said, well, what do you want to talk about? And I said, well, the usual, life and death. And kind of looked at me and we said our goodbye. And you know what happened? I never heard from him again. And I don't know why, but because, Zen is all about life and death, right? It's about my life, your lives, all of our lives, and very intimately our lives, and also about our death, which is inevitable. We all know that. And so when I look at it that way, I get a certain sense of urgency about my life, because honestly, I do not know what happens after I die. I've heard a lot of people talk about reincarnation and all these various things, and that's fine, but I don't know, and I actually don't think they know either, but they have some pretty elaborate theories about it. But I always come back to, I'm more concerned about my life right now, and as we always say, living in the moment, being in the present. And so I feel there's a little bit of a sense of urgency to work on my practice, all the time, in some way or another. And what is the practice? I mean, we could say, well, we know about all these practices like meditation or doing koans or chanting or bowing or work service and all sorts of things, and those are practices. But what is the point of those practices? It's to help us to or get us to realize this one thing, which is what the Buddha said, and I'll just paraphrase, but basically that I and you and everyone is already a Buddha. We just don't realize it. And that's quite a statement, because when I think about myself, well, first of all, I think, well, I'm not going to think of myself as a Buddha, that kind of makes my ego kind of puff up or something. I'm not sure what it does, but but in fact, he meant it. And in fact, it's been taught over and over and over for several thousand years, this kind of fundamental fact that it's only we only need to realize it. It's already there. And intellectually, you can think about that and go, well, okay, I kind of get it. We're all made of stardust, or we're all made of atoms or subatomic particles, and it's all one thing. The universe is all one thing, and I'm in that universe. I've sprung forth from this universe. I didn't come into the world. I came out of the world. And so intellectually we can kind of get, well, yeah, it's all one thing, and it's all Buddha or Buddha nature, or however you want to describe it. And I'm it. And so, okay. But, sort of intellectually getting it that way is okay, because it kind of gives you some sort of basis. But in Zen, the thing that we stress and that we need to have is a direct experience of that. And so the practices are there to set the table, you might say, or to break through our dualistic thinking and directly experience oneness and impermanence and the interdependence of everything, and this huge karmic flow that we're a part of, and not a separate part of, but an intrinsic part of. So that's the thing that, I feel a bit of a sense of urgency about, because it's not so easy. Believe me, I've been thinking about it for many years. I've had the direct experience of it maybe a couple of short times, but not really thoroughly, I don't think. So it takes some work, it takes some practice. So that's all I wanted to say to kind of open up the night, and we don't have to talk about any of that, but it is something that I wanted to say to everyone. And we'll go from there. I'd be happy to take any questions about your practice or your barriers in your practice, or anything that might help that I could offer so you can have this direct experience. Willie? Nice
Hello.
to see you.
Well, your little story is kind of moved me a little bit. Saturday, I'm going to be 83 years old. So I've thought a little bit about what happens after I die. According to statistics for American males, I should have died 5 years ago.
Right.
But I've had the experience, the good fortune, really, of being an end-of-life caregiver to 3 people I love. And the last one was my wife, and she died in my arms. And through that, I become less concerned about what happens to me after I die. If I die today, I've lived a life, and so be it. And I have no idea if there's the hereafter, and no one else does either, as near as I can tell. It's just, this could be it, or maybe I'll be reincarnated into a blade of grass. Who knows? But I think that the one thing I've learned, I've made a practice all my life of taking the wrong turns. And I think in Zen, they would call them the right turns, because there was something to learn for me to learn, I guess. And I'm new to Zen, but I'm fascinated by these teachings. And I wish I could have had it earlier, and if I'd have been open to this type of teachings earlier. But I found that I spent my whole life making money, helping other people make money, and all that sort of thing. But I never once really helped them. And now I spend my life helping people. And I get a hell of a lot more joy out of that than I do money. And I don't know, I think this Zen philosophy is very interesting to me. And I'm very anxious to learn all I can. I've got a question for you.
Okay.
I think I'm an old man and I'm hard of hearing, but I think I heard somewhere somebody say something about the 4 reasons for meditating or sitting.
Mhm.
I'd love, if there are the 4 reasons, I'd love to hear them. That's something it's one of the things that's I find it so easy to pass up doing a sitting, and I need to become more disciplined about it. But at any rate, that's something I'm curious about, if there are in fact 4 reasons.
Well, I'll make a note about that actually and see if I can track that down. I know that there are, I know recently I read that there's kind of 4 reasons, or 5, I think there were, that people are motivated. And, the first is, for myself is like, I want to be a better person. Right. And that's okay. And we all want to be that. And that's a good motivation. And then as you mature in practice, you do it, more to help others. And there's another one after that. And then the final one is you do it because that's just what Buddhists do. Which I think is kind of nice. And, but I'll make a note and I'll email you that.
Thank you.
And I just also wanted to say, when you said right turns and left turns, there are right turns and left turns, but there's kind of no wrong turns if you are learning something.
Mhm.
Okay. So that's the key. And every time something happens, whether it's good or bad, it's like, what should I learn from this? Or what am I learning? Or, like that. I know that another Zen teacher, Tenkei Roshi, who's over in Holland, one time told me that he goes, Zen is about making the best of a bad thing and making the best of a good thing.
Mm.
I kind of like that one.
Well, when Roshi, his last talked about stinginess, and I learned something from that. I mean, there's things that we don't like about ourselves, but there's a purpose in them. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I thought about it that way.
Well, and the best thing is to see it. The big mind process is all about recognizing things and kind of making them a bit of an object that you can look at.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when you're feeling a feeling or you're having a difficulty or you're, all the things that go on in life, by doing that, work back and forth and speaking from that voice, which is related to some kind of a feeling or something that's going on, or a thought, or a pattern, we see it as an object, so we see it's not us. Okay. So you could say, I am not my thoughts. I am not these feelings, because if I can see them, then they're other than me. So you kind of just keep going through everything, and you finally sort of end up, well, what is left? What is the real me if none of this is me? Okay, because we want to identify as different things, and we want to not identify as things we don't like, and we want to identify with the things we do like. But that's just the ego, like what are those little crabs that they grab little bits of stuff and glue it onto their shell, Can't remember what kind of crab that is, but they decorate themselves, right? And we decorate ourselves, and we get off the bad stuff and glue on the good stuff. And all of that is a problem from the Zen perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you for listening to me.
My pleasure, Willie. It's nice to see you. Stephen, you're up next.
I was thinking, Bruce, when you were talking initially about Buddha nature, I had an experience. It was probably 25 years ago, and during meditation, I felt like I was being visited by a bodhisattva, and he gave me his name and said, "If you need, I'll always be here to help you." And my first reaction was, and what I basically said was, "Well, how do I find you? How do I summon you? How do I get you to help me?" And he kind of laughed, shook his head, and he said, "You don't get it. I'm always here." And that always kind of stuck with me in terms of, to me, it didn't feel like he was telling me I'm a certain way. It was him just saying, you just need to tap into it, right?
Yeah. Well, I can feel that would have been a tremendous experience. Going back to everything is one thing, who do you think that bodhisattva is?
I believe he was an actual person.
Okay.
Tibetan monk. Yeah, he was a Tibetan monk. He gave me his name, and I referenced it, and I found it.
Oh, okay. So you met
Yeah.
that person.
Yeah.
Oh,
his name was Chandra Prabha Kumara.
Okay.
That's what he told me, and I looked it up and I found it online. I found one website, Tibetan lineage website, that referenced him.
Yeah.
It talked about him. So yeah, I believe that it was an actual person, but he was trying to show me you don't need to find it. You just need to open up.
Yeah. I spent 3 years doing Tibetan practice, and it's really, I get it more now than I did when I was doing it. And I get that fundamentally it's the same. They wear different colored robes, and they have, different ways of teaching and things, but it's basically the same thing. They're teaching that they're already a Buddha. You need to realize it or tap into it, like you say. But it's more than tapping in, because it's not a thing that's other than you. In other words, it's not dualistic that way. It's not like you make a phone call to somebody. It's more that you have the realization that it's all you. It's all in your power. It's all in your self, for lack of a better word. And, there's a great responsibility there to take care of yourself, right?
Yeah.
Is that what inspired you to kind of get into Buddhism, or?
Yeah, that was it. I was having a tough time, and it just came up at the right time, and yeah, I saw it as a sign, and that's when I really started looking into it. Just after that experience, I think his name he's known as the healer, and think he was
Yeah.
helping me out. So
That's great. I think, oftentimes when people are at a low or even rock bottom is when we're most open, right?
Yeah.
Because we realize that we're maybe in despair and we're open to whatever, whatever can come along. And it's at those points when you're so open, the world does answer. I have a very good friend who's an Episcopalian priest. And he said, most prayer is like petitionary prayer, right? Like praying to have, get something or have something be fixed or whatever. And he said, but the answers come, after you are done asking and you're just being quiet. When you finally sort of shut up and open up for an answer. And this is the way meditation is too, in a way. Willie asked about these motivations to meditate. And I said, the first one is, well, I want to be a better person, or I want to fix some problem, or I want to get out of rock bottom, or I need to change my habits or whatever. And, in meditation, if you sit there and kind of not ask a question, but just open yourself to answers, whatever they are, you just open up. And your thoughts are going to come and go in your mind and all these things are going to happen. But if you can just get quiet enough, you will have these realizations.
yeah, I've noticed a big difference when I open up. Because I have a hard time with that. But the times I've done it, and not worried about being embarrassed or being judged.
Yeah.
I've noticed that my heart opens up and I feel different.
Yeah. That's the trick, that's the trick. And it is hard to do because, when we start to feel good, it's like, we lose that sense of urgency, right? Everything's kind of okay, and maybe you solve the immediate problem, but we usually haven't solved the real problem. And the real problem is, seeing our true nature, or the real goal, I guess, not the problem, but it takes dedication, it takes effort. We were doing the 6 paramitas workshops this year, and they're very close to the Buddha's Eightfold Path in terms of you have to spend some effort, you have to have some discipline, you have to have some will to do it. And it's funny because some of the side effects of meditation are you do feel a little calmer, you do feel a little more grounded, and then people, and I'm speaking of myself, I'm this way. I think, oh, okay, I'm cool. And then I won't sit or forget about practice or whatever. You can also overdo it where you just like burn out, from sitting and meditating, or in the Tibetan practice, we just like chant for hours, which can get you into that meditative state because the chant itself crowds out all your thinking. And you're just kind of in the rhythm and the pace of that chanting. So these are all, we call these upayas, right? They're skillful means, is what that means. They're ways to sort of trick yourself into it, or to, block out whatever is the barrier. But what else are we going to do, right? You gotta do something, and it's good to hold on to maybe that feeling you had at rock bottom, because that will open you up.
Yeah, the vulnerability, and I think I've made some breakthroughs in terms of realizing that By putting up barriers, I'm not protecting myself. I'm just hurting myself.
Yeah. Every time we're protecting ourselves, we're putting up barriers, right?
Yeah.
And every wall is a bit of a prison. It's weird. I mean, you have to totally expose yourself.
Yeah, that's very, very difficult.
It's very
Very
difficult.
difficult.
But that's why we're here together doing it as a group. And we have great teachers like Gimpo Roshi and Mark and Mary Ellen and others who, who can provide some momentum and, place to keep coming to and kind of keep the ball rolling and help you get through some things and like that. So I'm really glad that you're here, Stephen.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Jane, I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, this is great being here. I am dropping, so I may freeze up. I
Okay.
mean, my image and sound, just to let you know, it's happening right now. If, let's see, I think I'm frozen up right now, aren't I?
Yeah, but I can hear you, so it's okay. And you're smiling in your frozen picture, so it's great.
Okay, I'm back. Okay, I'm back, I think.
Yeah.
When you first talked about, and Willie brought this up too, about death, what came up for me was the year and a half with my mother in a care center in Kansas City, and I'm in Colorado, and how the pandemic altered. I mean, it was I wasn't able to see her. I had all these ideas and expectations about how I was going to be there for her as she was in her last chapter and finally death. And I realized that dropping those ideas and expectations, had I done it sooner, would have been, trying to get my phone to stop, would have been helpful, and I kind of was able to do it in retrospect, but because I was expecting to be there physically in her presence, and so doing it more on the phone or with a Zoom call. But because of her dementia, she really didn't understand that it was me or anything. So trying to come up with all of these ways of connecting with her, through that time. And, but I guess when she actually died, how it happened was extremely shocking to me and distressing. But now that I've had quite a bit of time, I realize that it made a whole lot of sense for her and where she was and what she was dealing with. And in a way, I can't help but wonder if I'd actually been there and she had seen more of me, if it would have been harder for her to go. I mean, I don't know, but I think the lesson, when you're talking about lessons, the lessons I got out of that was just being open to whatever is, however difficult it is and painful it is, just being tuned in to what's really going on in the moment, really, rather than bringing all these ideas into it, because we don't always get what we want. And I certainly didn't in that instance, but now when I look back on it, I think what she did was incredibly courageous. And it just fit with how she lived her life, the way she went about dying, even though it was extremely difficult for me, the violence of it and so on. But anyway, it's something that will be with me. I mean, I just feel like it was a really important experience, as painful as it was.
Well, it's certainly something we shouldn't shy away from, right? As difficult as it is. You know, I can tell you, my my wife is a hospice chaplain.
Mm.
And my mother, who turned 97 just a month or so ago, has been living with us for about the last 6-7 years. And you know, it's a daily sort of thing, you know, because I'm taking care of my mom, you know, and she's been there years now. And you know, it's tough when it's somebody, you know, that's that close. I mean, who's closer than your mother, you know, right?
Yeah.
And I watch, you know, and I see how things deteriorate, you know, over time. And she's doing pretty good, but you know, none of us last forever, right? And so you know, I have to stay open all the time. Like I'm open and happy when she's doing well, and I'm open to times she's confused or, you know, can't do things. And you know, and it took about a year or so for me actually to kind of get into a mode where I just take it day by day. I really do take it day by day. And I don't know any other way to do it, but I think the answer is always to be open to the moment and to leave our, you know, our lenses behind, right? And our expectations and our judgments about what should be or shouldn't be, and all that, which doesn't mean that you can't feel what you're feeling. As a matter of fact, you'll feel your true feelings better if it's not being measured by expectations. You know, you can just feel how you feel. I mean, there's times I feel very sad, you know, about my mom, and there's other times I feel happy about it, you know. I mean, it just goes however. And the key is to, like I say, be open to what's happening, but also to have awareness of my internal states as things change for good or ill, right? And that's kind of what I was talking to Willie about, is just, you know, being aware of what's going on with you. And that's where the lessons come from.
Yeah, it was a very intense thing. I mean, the other thing I noticed too, I mean, at my age, and you know, there's a lot of death, but oh, I dropped again.
I can hear you though, it's fine.
I'm waiting for it to come back up.
There you go.
Okay, thank you for your patience. What I noticed too is that every death is different, how I experience it and how the death goes. And the final thing I just wanted to say was I was quite surprised by the physicality of it when the phone call came and I was having my hair cut to get ready to go and say goodbye to her because I knew it was imminent. How physical it was. I mean, it just felt like my guts were, it was almost because she was my mother, and there was this physical connection from having come from her body that was really different from all the other deaths that I've experienced. How intensely physical it was, where I could just feel the rupture, the separation. You know, and I kind of wondered if that was like I'm reliving the cutting of the umbilical cord. And I was crying out for her as if we're a child. Mama, mama, where are you? You know, it was just really an extraordinary experience. And so hopefully I will be as present with ones in the future, where I can notice those things, the distinctions and so on.
Well, I think too that it's something that you'll probably be kind of processing for a while,
Yeah,
maybe
for
for the rest of
sure.
your life, you know. These are important things, and yeah, thank you for
Thank you.
that. Sam, are you
Yes,
there?
sir. I just want to say, I think it's the same courage and tenacity and strength it takes to face these things in life as it is to go through the barrier of Zen or the gateless gate. And for me, I've been not real good at embodying things, or I kind of I shy away from, with my mom dealing with some of the same things, and she's not quite to that point yet. But just to have dedication to this gateless gate, or to the idea of day and night persevering and doing something and focusing on that with a kind of intensity that I haven't known, it allows for me to empathize with the sharing here, and allows for me to kind of open up to what's being shared, and for me to embody the experience, and for me to be emptied out so that I can allow in your experience, and so that it can be like more of a collective thing, as opposed to Sam listening and you talking and then I share, and it's the boundary between self and other is so rigid. So I don't know if we want to say anything like about the gateless gate, but I've got the idea that, it's not like the first koan of Zen, and once you've passed through the barrier, oh, I've been through that koan. It's something that sometimes it takes a dedicated effort to something like that to help you in the times where you're feeling like you're at rock bottom, or it's just not working. Because from what little I've experienced, it's really forcing me to, in my body, confront certain things rather than just stay with my usual reaction somehow.
Yeah. Well, life is just a constant confronting of things, right? I mean,
Mhm.
it never stops, right? Or maybe it stops, but we don't know for sure, even that. But when you mention the gateless gate, I mean, that's just another way of saying you're already a Buddha, you just don't realize it. The gate is not realizing it, but it's not really a gate because it's true. I mean, the truth of it is there. So I guess you could call realizing it as the gate, but even if you don't realize it, you're still it.
Yeah, it's like the difference between trying to renounce something like bad habits or something, and then renouncing just because you're confronting it and there's no active renunciation. Because
Yeah.
I'd have no idea what renunciation is, but when I'm focused on this, for some reason, when I'm concentrated on it, I just don't have time for a lot of my other stuff I used to do. And it's not like I've made a great effort and I've renounced and I've done this or whatever.
Yeah.
It's happening, I think.
Well, let me say a little bit about that because
Yes.
um, Zen practice is not made to crowd out the rest of your life. Okay. And so while I advocate steady practice, I don't advocate 24/7 practice. I mean, if by practice we mean meditating on your cushion or chanting or doing these kinds of things, because then what kind of life do you have, right? And since it's really about your life, you have to keep on experiencing your life and living your life, and then the Zen part is there to help you open to it and be aware of it and to learn from it. So I spent 7 years in the monastery, and it's an interesting thing because it pretty much is 24/7, like what everybody would think of as practice. I mean, you get up at 5:30 and you splash some water in your face and grab a cup of tea or coffee, and then you're up meditating and doing services, and there's 2 or 3 periods of meditating, and then there's breakfast, which you eat in the zendo on your cushion a lot of times. and then more meditation, and then you finally get to go do some work around the place, like scrubbing the floors or working in the office or doing gardening or cooking or cleaning or whatever. And then there's more meditation. It's just like this really rigid schedule that goes till 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night, and then you fall into bed and maybe you have time to read a little bit of a book or something. But so in a way, the monastery life is sort of crowding out what we always said, normal life, regular life. And I wouldn't say it's all bad, because you do have a lot of time to develop this kind of, well, we call it samadhi, but it's a kind of combination of willpower and equanimity, I would call it, where it's or sort of a spiritual strength that is centered in your body. But it's, and there's plenty of occasions in the monastery to get into tangles with people and have problems and things like that, and experience, the kind of things you experience in regular life. But I have to say that after I left the monastery and I haven't been back, I've been living the regular life. I have a child and a wife and my mom here. That practice that I did then has definitely helped me in regular life. Okay. And I continue, but I don't meditate nearly as much as I used to then. I study and, I come to all these meetings and everything. But I think that, if you don't need to go to a monastery to develop that kind of samadhi. It's not so much the amount of time that you spend maybe meditating or chanting or doing whatever your practice is. It's the regularity of it. It's having it as part of your schedule. And so if it's even 20 minutes a day or 20 minutes twice a day, it's better to do that every day than it is to, in my opinion, than to, go to a retreat and meditate like crazy for 7 days and then go home and not do it for a while. Okay. So in a way, I sometimes relate it to, like, if you're going to go to the gym, you can go and work out like crazy for a week and be super sore and everything and not go back. And, it doesn't really do you much good. But if you go every day and do a little bit, or every other day, and just keep it steady, then after a month or two, you'll start to notice some real changes in your body. And it's the same with Zen practices, that it's the regularity and the steadiness of it that does the trick. So that's my recommendation for that. And then somewhere along the line, all of a sudden, you do sort of break through. It comes out of nowhere, kind of. You're not trying anymore. You're just like doing your thing. You're doing your regular thing, and then all of a sudden one day, wow, you see something stunning. You see the truth of oneness. You see the truth of that everything is Buddha, and I am too. And and you might only get a glimpse, and after that glimpse, you'll be like, oh, I want to get that again, and of course then you can't, because you're trying so hard, right? So it's really like this shedding and letting go and opening up and exposing yourself, kind of, that does it. It's not like studying for an exam or something. Okay. Zen is very upside down in some ways. So thank you.
I wonder if, would you say that you would get something out of, say, meditating on Mu or something, or would that affect your practice back then? Like, would it get you closer to Genpo Rinpoche?
Yeah, I'm not even sure I'm going to answer that in a way, because koan practice is a type of practice that you do with your teacher, and anything I say about it is going to be a little off the mark. It's just yeah. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to pass.
Okay.
on.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, thank you. I appreciate your sharing and all, and everybody. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, Paul Grace, my old friend and ex-drummer.
Oh, still drummer.
We had a band at the Zen Center, and Paul was the drummer.
And of course, Bruce was the bass player and
Yeah.
baritone.
Yeah. So what do you got?
Great.
Paul? What's up?
Well, I just want to thank Jane to begin with.
Yeah.
Shit. I thought I could get through this dry eye, but I don't think it's going to happen.
You never did.
Yeah. Talking about your mother's death, I realized that, as Bruce said, your mother's death becomes a lifelong koan. It's never going to stop. In my experience, I just keep realizing and realizing and realizing as I think about it. And when I first became a student of Zen, the first thing I noticed was I became teachable. Something I never thought would happen. And out of that, everything else has proceeded. And having my mother's death and all the others be koans of their own stripe. Everyone's different, like you said. But every one of them is a lifelong koan. And being teachable, like Bruce said, is that vulnerability. When are you more vulnerable than when you're teachable? And when you're more teachable than when you're vulnerable? And it has become evident to me what a grace that is to choose, if that means anything. All the counseling that I've done over decades with other people has gotten better because I have moved into more allowing them to teach me what's it like to be you. And so the quality of my work is gotten more effective the less I know. And that's bottom line for me. But well, like I said, it's going to be a lifelong koan. And more you will know what it's like to be her. But more than that, you'll know more and more what it's like to be everybody you run into in the supermarket, school, wherever, your relationships, at least in my experience. And it's a huge act of faith, this business of not knowing. And when I'm with people, I notice that I'm allowing them to teach me what it's like to be them. The perfect question arises because I want to know more.
Yeah.
And on and on, it's a continuing act of faith. But out of that also comes this great gratitude. Because what's poured on to me is this teaching that I could never deserve, but somehow has been provided.
Yeah, I think, thanks, Paul. Well said. I think that's kind of what's happened with Stephen is, he opened up and here it came, And
exactly. Thank you, Steve.
It's a very profound feeling. And I think a lot of us have probably felt that kind of thing. But the responsibility is then, what do I do now that, that I've had that? Because life is still a koan. It's, it's still a puzzle. It's still something that can only be experienced and not explained. And the only way to experience it completely is to sort of let go with both hands right? There's a koan where the well, and I can't recall the characters. I'm sorry. I believe Joshua was one of them, but he asks the monk, where he sees him on the road. Where are you going? He says, I'm on a pilgrimage. And he goes, pilgrimage to where? And he goes, I don't know. And the master says, oh, well, not knowing is most intimate. And it's such an interesting koan because, and I'm going to talk about it on one level, but when we have, when we see life through a lens of our ego, when we see life, through our expectations, through our judgments, our convictions, our notions, our ideas, all of that, then those things are the barrier between you and being intimate with what is. So that's why he says not knowing is most intimate. When those things are gone, when you have let go of it all with both hands, then you can be truly intimate with what is, right? Because there's nothing in between you. You're not putting up anything in between you and the experience right now. And this is what we invented all these upayas, all these skillful means to try to do, is to, like I said at the beginning, have that direct realization that you are Buddha, and the only thing in the way is realizing it. And why don't we realize it? Well, because we have ideas about it. We already have ideas what a Buddha is and what Buddha nature is and whatever, we have ideas about it. And those ideas are the exact thing that's in the way of actually experiencing it. It's crazy.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
I've just noticed that it's in my not knowing that wisdom arises. It's only then, separate from me, even though I may be the channel for it or the deliverer. It's the better I am at not knowing, the more authentic the wisdom is that arises. And I just have to watch it. And I get the answer at the same time somebody else does.
Yeah, and it's funny because even saying not knowing, or even saying the word wisdom, or even saying any of that is even still a bit of a barrier. Do you get what I mean? Because those things are all have dualistic connotations, like wisdom versus not wisdom, or that this is the barrier that our language is. We're so, we have to communicate with language. I'm not advocating that we all forget how to speak English or anything, but ultimately there are no words.
And so naming is what you're talking about.
Every time you name something, then it's only defined by its opposite or degree of that
word.
Yeah, every word. And yet, that's all we have right now to, and everything I'm saying right now is all, and everybody said tonight is all fine, but it's not the direct experience. We're talking about it. Okay.
Pointing.
Yeah. Yeah, they say pointing at the moon.
Damn moon.
Anybody else have anything? Thanks, Paul. Okay, well, if that's it, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. And, I will put in a little pitch for the Introduction to Zen classes I'm going to be giving on Saturday, starting January 7th. I'm going to do 6 Saturdays in a row for an hour and a half each Saturday morning. I think 10 in the morning to 11:30 US Mountain Time, which may or may not be so convenient for everybody, but trying to shoot the middle. And I'm going to do the classes based on a very great book called The 3 Pillars of Zen by Philip Kapleau. And I'll talk a little bit about Philip Kapleau, but the book is basically, the star of the book is a fellow named Hogen Yasutani Roshi. And Yasutani Roshi was the root teacher, one of the 2 root teachers of Maizumi Roshi, who founded the Los Angeles Zen Center, which is where Genpo Roshi trained. And so it's in our direct lineage. And one of the wonderful things about Yasutani Roshi is that he was ordained in both the Soto and Rinzai schools, which are the 2 main schools of Zen. And he combined their practices. And so that combined kind of practice that we have through him, through Maizumi Roshi, through Genpo Roshi, and on to us, is what our lineage is all about. And Yasutani Roshi saw that Westerners were starting to maybe get interested in Zen, and he thought he should write some lectures or do some lectures as an introduction to Zen. Philip Kapleau was there and transcribed it all and clarified it all, and spent many years with Yasutani Roshi getting every word just right. Because since we have to use language, then it's very important to use precise language, as precise as we can get. So, but they're very readable. The 3 Pillars of Zen book, we're just going to go through the first few chapters, which is like, I believe, 12 of his, then the short lectures. And we'll read it together and talk about it together each Saturday and go through that. And it'll give you some very good background in at least our lineage and our practices and the way he looks at things. So I encourage you, if you to come, and you can look on our website and sign up for it there. So that's a word from our sponsors.
Can I say something brief about that, Bruce?
Yeah.
When I was 19, I read The 3 Pillars of Zen. It's my first exposure. And my thought was, holy shit, if this is true, this is the most important thing in the world. And that stayed with me. So it's very cool that you're doing that. And I have people who would gladly jump on board. I'm assuming you're going to send us the information. Right?
Yeah, there'll be an email going around about it. And you can also go onto the website, and there's a link on the homepage or a little box talking about it. I have to tell you, Paul, the first time I read it, I had no clue what the hell he was talking about. And so I get it a lot better now. But anyway, thank you very much, everyone, for coming. And we're going to take a short break through the holiday season here. So we're not going to have any more of these Tuesdays and Thursdays for a couple of weeks, and then we'll be back again on schedule in January. So I wish you all a great 2 weeks, and see you around the corner.
All right. See you on Sunday.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah, Baroshi is
Good night.
giving a talk on Sunday, so for everybody. So come to that. That'll be a great, that's our actually last thing before the holidays. So Sunday. All right. Good night.
All right.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Bruce, thank